Well, it's pretty easy. You just double your estimates, and then suddenly your velocity goes up. Hi, my name is Daria. Welcome to Scrum Mastered video series where I give you practical tips on how to build awesome teams. In today's video, I wanted to talk about velocity, the metric that is usually used in organizations and by teams that are going through an agile transformation and that are following Scrum. So this metric is usually used to help organizations understand whether their Scrum adoption actually works. Well, is it the right way to actually use this metric? Let's look at what velocity is, when to use it, and when not to use it. What is velocity? Well, velocity shows us how much work a Scrum team is able to accomplish, usually within one sprint. It is the speed at which the Scrum team is able to turn product backlog items into a done increment. It is usually based on things like user story points or the number of tickets, product backlog items that have been done. So it gives us a number. And a lot of the times we look at this number, and a lot of organizations going through an agile transformation as performance. Well, how much work is a team able to accomplish within a sprint? Is it getting better? Is it improving? Is it consistent? And here's the thing. Velocity is based on made-up numbers. If we look at user story points, those are just numbers that were chosen by the team arbitrarily to help them plan ahead and to estimate the work. So what does it actually mean? Velocity in itself is just historical data. How much work were we able to accomplish on average within a sprint based on the previous metrics, on the previous sprints? So we'll look at our previous sprints and calculate how much work we're able to accomplish based on our estimates, and then gives us an average of how much work we usually able to accomplish. So when do we actually use that? Well, we can use it to plan ahead. For example, we can look at how much work we usually accomplish, and then look at our next sprint during the sprint planning and see how much work we can take in. For example, if on average we're able to complete 30 user story points a sprint, then there's no way we're going to take in 70 user story points in the next sprint, because we know that most likely, very highly likely, we're not going to be able to accomplish it because that is not how much work we're usually able to accomplish. So velocity can be used in planning for the team to really try to understand how much work they should be taking into the sprint. However, velocity in itself, as I said, is just historical data. It does not represent performance, it does not represent value the team delivers, and it also does not really represent how much work or how much better the team is becoming when they're implementing the Scrum framework. The easiest way, the best way to look at velocity is to look at it as a commute time. For example, when you're going from your home to your work, you can say that it usually takes you 1 hour to get there. You know that some days you might be really lucky and you will get to work in 40 minutes. But sometimes there will be maybe a traffic jam on the road and it will take you an hour and a half. You still understand that on average it usually takes you an hour to get to work, so you know that you need to leave your house an hour earlier if you want to be there on time for a specific meeting. However, if you are actually late on one of the days, well, imagine your manager coming to you and saying, well, how come you're late? I thought that it usually takes you an hour. How did you not estimate this extra 30 minutes that it took you to get here? Well, you didn't know. We live in a complex world where a lot of factors are impacting our work, and in this situation, our commute time. So in this case, while we have an average time of how much time it usually takes us to get to work, it doesn't mean that it will always be exactly the same, because things will change. Some factors will impact our commute time, whether by making it better, maybe getting to work in only 40 minutes, or making it worse and extending it. The same thing happens with velocity. Velocity is average data that gives us a way to plan our sprint. However, on some sprints, it might spike. We might get lucky, we maybe underestimated some of the work, and then suddenly we're able to accomplish more, and in this particular sprint, our velocity goes up. That's great. Then on the other sprint, we might encounter problems, some things that we didn't expect, and our velocity goes down. These are absolutely normal fluctuations because we do work in a complex product environment, which means that we cannot predict the future. We can only base our decision on what we know so far, knowing that it is not a perfect estimation and it is not a perfect plan. But it is at least a good start for us to plan our sprint ahead. And here is where the problem really lies, is that a lot of organizations, management, and teams start to use velocity as a representation of performance or value delivered by the team. But because velocity is just historical data, it doesn't actually show us the value that the team delivers. It just shows us the speed at which the team goes. So if we put in place the metric of velocity as a way to whether measure performance or maybe compare different teams to each other, well, this is where we see the biggest problem. Because velocity is based on those made-up numbers, it is very easy to game it. So if the team is being pressured to improve their velocity, to increase it, or maybe even double it, well, it's pretty easy. You just double your estimates, and then suddenly your velocity goes up. And if you're doing it that way, if your team feels the need to game the system with velocity, trying to show that they're doing better, that they're delivering more, when then they're using the metric of velocity not for the good. And you're actually wasting the team's time on using velocity estimating and maybe even using it in planning. This is where we can see how to use and not to use velocity. A question to you then, how do you use velocity? If you're using velocity right now in order to calculate performance or value delivered by the team or anything else that is not really internal team planning, then stop. And instead look at what other metrics can you help collect and track that will show the success of Scrum and the success of the team. So there are many different metrics that exist, and there are a lot of videos that I have already created and posted to this channel and at scrummaster.com blog that you can read and hopefully find new insights and new ways to implement agility and Scrum in your organization. I hope you learned something new today, and if you did, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this YouTube channel. And also check out the scrummaster.com blog, where I share even more insights for Scrum Masters and Agile practitioners of any organization, any industry, and any level. I hope to see you next time. Cheers and Scrum on!